All right, everyone. So we have the full spoilers for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 20, and I'm going to be going over some of them here in this video with you guys. Now, I say some of them because obviously we still don't have full context for what's actually happening here in this chapter with these spoilers. So obviously we'll have the full context when the official chapter gets released, and that's when I am going to essentially give you guys my thoughts, or you'll know my full thoughts about the chapter, because obviously with the dialogue you have to combine it with the actual art, because it helps give you the full story. And sometimes you looking at both the dialogue and the art will take away something that other people maybe didn't, because obviously you look at things differently than everyone else. So basically it's the same as what we usually do here on this channel. And right now I'm going to go over some of them, and as always, when the official chapter gets released on the 18th, that's when I will try to put out a video where I'm going to give you guys my quick thoughts, basically the same as what I did for chapter 19, where I'm just going to go over the chapter and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts just off the top of my head. And then I will do, like, I guess you could call it an official video review for, that chapter, where I actually, write it down and I try to basically make it as polished as possible. And I'm going to, do all the editing and everything. And so if you're interested in that, then that'll definitely happen. But if you're just curious about what my thoughts are, just real quick, then I will do that, and I'll try to release it the day of the day the chapter actually gets released, is what I'm trying to say, that, but having some difficulty for some reason. Anyway, let's go over some of these chapter spoilers that we do have. Now, again, we're only going to cover some things from the chapter, because I don't want this video to be too long, because if I cover everything, I'm just going to make this video way longer than it needs to be. So the couple of things that I do want to talk about, the first thing is we get the continuation of the fight between Ryu and Mitsuki. Now, I already did a video where I covered the first official page that was released on the Naruto website. And if you're curious about that, I'll leave a link to it in the description, and I will leave a link to it at the end of the video. One of the two. Most likely it is going to be at the end of the video if you're interested, but I'll also try and leave a link to it in the description if you're, again, curious about it. So in that video, I talked about how we're getting the continuation of the, Mitsuki versus Ryu fight. And just based on what we have in these spoilers, it seems like Ryu wins, and it's not even close. So Ryu just overpowers Mitsuki. So even Sage Mode Mitsuki wasn't enough to do anything against Ryu, which is understandable, because again, we have been told over and over again that these awakened Shinju are essentially going to be really tough to deal with. And we already know that each one of them scales over code, and this is no limiter's code, who scales above Jigen. Now, to be fair, the show never really specifies, the manga never actually specifies which version of Jigen that they scale over, or that code actually scales over. Are we talking about the Jigen who beat Naruto and Sasuke, who was juiced up on Ten Tails chakra? Or are we talking about the Jigen that they knew before he did that? Which I don't even know if they are aware that Jigen even did that, where he actually powered himself up with Ten Tails chakra before he went to go face off against Naruto and Sasuke. So the series never really clarified which version of Jigen, but let's just say it's the Jigen that did beat Naruto and Sasuke. So we've got a code who scales above that, and now these awakened Shinju scale above even him. Now, whether they're close to Ishiki and Baryon Mode Naruto in terms of power, we don't actually know. That's kind of a little bit iffy. We still don't really know, because in all honesty, the power scaling in Boruto can be a little bit vague. Like they don't give a little bit more detail as to where people specifically are in terms of power compared to each other. We're left to sort of guess based on what the series actually gives us. So it is a little bit difficult to say, but again, just for argument's sake, let's say it's above the Jigen who beat Naruto and Sasuke. I don't know why I'm having trouble talking. But let's say they're still below Ishiki and Baryon Mode Naruto in terms of power. Let's just say that, again, for argument's sake. So that explains why it's going to be difficult for them to defeat these awakened Shinju, and why Ryu managed to win over Mitsuki. That, and he also has these, difficult to deal with abilities like the Iron Sand, and presumably he's got other abilities that we don't really know. For example, with Hidari, the most that we've seen him use is the lightning attacks that we know Sasuke uses, but we also know he has access to Sasuke's other abilities like the Fire Style ability, and possibly other abilities that Sasuke also learned that we have yet to see him actually be able to use. And we can assume that, I was about to say Shinki. We can assume that Ryu probably also has access to all of the different abilities that Shinki has access to. But for now, he's just using the Iron Sand because that's the most powerful or the most versatile. So yeah, Ryu manages to win over Mitsuki, and then Mitsuki and Araya are taken hostage, and now Sarada is basically left confused. And this is where we see the lead up to essentially the moment that a lot of Sarada fans have been waiting for, which is the debut of Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan. And when that happens, we finally get to see what either one of or just her actual ability is, which is to basically open portals that are similar to the Karma Mark, but act the same as Obito's Kamui. Now, again, it is a little bit confusing. That's why I want to wait until we get the actual chapter where we actually get to see how it's depicted, and then we'll know what's actually happening. So yeah, again, it's a little bit confusing with just going by the text that's provided to us. But basically, that's essentially what's being described to us right now, is that it's similar to, at least in appearance, to the Karma Mark, or the portals that the Karma Mark open, or just the portals that the Otsutsuki are able to open. And Sasuke, of course, had that ability because he had the Rinnegan that was given to him by Hagoromo. So in appearance, at least, it looks like that, but it acts sort of like Kamui, where any portal that you open, that you, basically, if you remember how Kakashi's Kamui, operated, he can basically open a portal, and then wherever he opens it, everything around it basically gets sucked into it and goes into the Kamui dimension. So that's basically how her Mangekyo Sharingan power is acting like. Now, again, we don't actually know whether this is her only ability or if this is just one of her two abilities. Because if you remember, every Mangekyo Sharingan user we've seen had either two different abilities or one specific ability, but each eye can activate it in a different way. So just to give an example, and to keep up with the Obito theming here, Obito's two Mangekyo Sharingan each could use Kamui, but just in a different manner from the other. So his left Kamui can basically open a portal in a distance, but his right Mangekyo Sharingan eye can use Kamui on himself. So it's the one that he uses to basically make people pass through him. And he basically becomes, quote unquote, intangible. Even though he doesn't actually become intangible, it's just he basically takes whatever part of his body that people are passing through, or anything passes through, and just temporarily puts it in the Kamui dimension. And then once they're done, it immediately goes right back. It happens so quick that it just looks like he's intangible. That's how his ability actually is, for anyone who might be confused on how that actually worked excuse me. So that's, again, describing to us what her power is. And like I said, this is a moment that Sarada fans have been looking forward to. And for me personally, I don't really know how I feel about it at the moment. Personally, I think again, like I said, I need to see it, and I might need to think about this for a little bit and what her power actually means, and whether or not this is the only power that she has. And like I said, the same with Obito, it's one power, but each eye uses it differently, or it's this one power in one eye and her other eye is a completely different power. Now, again, we don't know which eye specifically. That's why, again, we have to wait until we actually get the chapter itself, or maybe we'll get some raw scans that show us what's going on. But even then, I think it's still better to wait for the actual chapter. So that's what's going on with Sarada. The other thing that I want to talk about is what's going on with Konohamaru and Matsuri. Now, just based off where we left them, Konohamaru was about to be eaten, but it looks like Konohamaru was able to sort of fend her off, because he was, in a way, able to get her off guard for whatever reason. Again, however he managed to do that, he was able to get her off guard enough to where he could basically attack her with a double Rasengan. Now, the interesting thing about this is we're also told that when this happened, apparently Jura felt it. He felt what happened to Matsuri. Now, this makes sense because, remember, Jura did say that even though they each have their own unique identity, their own unique feelings, they are still technically one entity. They are still technically one divine tree. It's just that each of them also have their own personality, their own identity. And so Jura being able to feel what happens to each and every one of them makes sense, because remember, Jura himself is the Ten Tails, and these other awakened Shinju were technically made from him. So again, him being able to feel that does actually make sense. It is in line with what we were told about Jura and, him being the Ten Tails and all that stuff. So what I find interesting, or what I'm curious about, I guess I should say, is this going to lead to Jura going to the battlefield? Because remember, the reason why Kashin Koji isn't allowing Boruto to go to the battlefield is because Kashin Koji told him that if you go to the battlefield, Jura will go there and this time he will kill you. Now, did Kashin Koji know that each of the awakened Shinju are connected? Because maybe he already saw it with 10 Directions that if Boruto went there, he would have fought against the awakened Shinju. He would have fought against either Matsuri or Ryu trying to save everyone. And then Jura would have felt Boruto there due to what he's doing to the awakened Shinju, due to what he would have done to Matsuri and Ryu. And then he would have gone there and he would have killed Boruto. Now, I'm wondering if this is setting up Jura possibly going to the battlefield, and if this is going to lead to the death of one of the people, or one of the shinobi, that are there. That's just what I'm wondering, because it is curious that they're specifically showing us Jura sensing basically what's happening to Matsuri. Now, one last thing that I want to talk about with the whole Konohamaru and Matsuri thing is that apparently, according to what's written here, after Konohamaru's betrayal of Matsuri, she gets even angrier, and it seems like she's about to finish him off, and this is the last thing between them in the chapter. So here's the thing. I am honestly wondering, is this going to lead to Konohamaru dying? And this is something that I've been wondering for a while now. And just based off what we got here in this chapter about him being able to fend her off, and apparently this making her angrier, I am wondering if this really is going to lead to Matsuri not absorbing Konohamaru like her original goal was, but her just outright killing him. And I know a lot of people have probably discussed the possibility of Konohamaru dying. My personal thoughts on it are, and I was originally going to make another video about this, or maybe I still will, because it's connected to, in my opinion, like one of my criticisms of the Boruto series so far. So maybe I might still make a video on that. But just to give like a quick idea as to what I'm talking about, I personally think that Konohamaru should die. Now, the reason why I think that is because I think it would be a good way to add some stakes. Oh, excuse me. I hit the microphone. Hope you didn't hear that. Yeah, I think it would be a good way to add some stakes to the series, because that's something that, in all honesty, for me, I feel like has been missing, not just from Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, but just missing from Boruto in general. I thought we were getting that with Kurama, even though I'm sure a lot of people were not happy about Kurama dying. And while personally I didn't like it because, I like Kurama, I like him as a character, but it was technically good for the story because it essentially introduced stakes. Like, it introduced that someone who is a legacy character who, if you think about it, literally the first character that ever appeared in the story was Kurama. And he was killed off. So if someone like him could be killed off, maybe other people could also be killed off, other legacy characters. And while, again, personally, I wouldn't like seeing that because, again, I do like these characters, it would still be good for the story. But lately, it's been kind of missing from that. It's been kind of missing from the series where it kind of needs stakes. And this is something that, in all honesty, even Naruto was kind of missing. As much as I love the Naruto story, one thing that was kind of missing is stakes. And when we got to the war arc, that was definitely something missing. Hell, if you had any opportunity to start killing off characters, that's when it would have happened. Because number one, it was the last arc of the series. There was, or at least, we thought at the time there was going to be nothing else after that. But at the same time, it would make a lot of sense because it's a war, in war people dies. And so having characters get killed off, didn't have to be everyone, but just some characters that we liked getting, essentially killed, which would have added stakes. And we would have seen, how Naruto reacted to that. We got a little bit of that with Neji's death, but in my opinion, it just wasn't enough. It needed to be more. And that seems to have continued in Boruto, and even now in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, where it seems like anytime a character is about to be killed, there's some convenient reason that just gets them out of it. And not that it doesn't make sense, not that this series doesn't explain it, but it just feels so convenient that right when things are about to go bad, something just happens to show up that just saves them. And it really is connected to what Jura basically said in chapter 10, I think, if I remember correctly. Or no, maybe it was chapter 14, where he basically said that it's interesting because it really does feel like there's some outside force that happens to, conveniently make everything go, well for you. And I don't know, it's just for me personally, like it needs some stakes. And that's why I think it would be better if Konohamaru did die here, if Matsuri did kill him. And whether that's through her absorbing him or just outright killing him, whatever needs to happen, I think it needs to happen. And apparently the last thing, we see in this chapter is Sarada with her Mangekyo Sharingan. And like I said, we'll see it when we get the actual chapter or maybe when we get raw scans. But for now, that's all I have for you guys. And let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below as always. And if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more from it, make sure to hit the like button, share this video. And if you like my content, consider subscribing. Great way to, support the channel. And please, like I said, comment down below. All those things really do help push videos out in the YouTube algorithm. And with all that said out of the way, I hope I'll see you guys for my next video, which hopefully is my, quick thoughts on Boruto chapter 20 when the official chapter gets released. Bye for now.